All right, so what is the best way that you would break down your analytics?
So once you have your analytics set up and you're all actually in your dashboard, one of the things that I would make sure, like I kind of mentioned earlier, is first off, have the segment made where it's just your service area. So making sure that it is just pulling from cities that you service in your direct service area. So you're not pulling from states outside or the other side of the state or other countries. So that's just traffic that pertains to who you service. Once you have that segment set up, the data that you need to look at and how it's broken down is source and location. Those are things that you can look at. There's tons of different options in there. We usually narrow it down to the brass tacks of source and location. Source lets you know, and it gives you a list. Like, let's say you have 900 website entrances in a month, and you go to the source tab, and their source will actually give you a list of where they're coming from, whether they're organic, so they're just kind of discovering you from Google, whether they're coming from a PPC campaign. If you have it set up in your Google Analytics correctly, you can measure that. If you're coming from Facebook, maybe display ads that you have running, third party yellow page directory sources, it'll list all those different sources. And then it'll give you information for how long their session was, where, and like how many people came from each one. The next one is location. Location is very important. I kind of spoke to that earlier. Location breaks it down by your city, especially if you already have your service area segment already made. So it's already narrowing it down to what you actually care about. It's going to give you a list of the cities that find you have the most entrances from. So when you see metro markets, so for instance, I gave Salt Lake City as an example before. I would say another example that we'll use is like Dallas. The DFW area is pretty massive. So maybe you have a business in Denton, but then the thing is you have Dallas coming up in your metrics quite a bit for having a lot of entrances from Dallas, but you don't do actually work in Dallas at all. Well, the thing is a commuter is a big deal, that a lot of people are looking you up while they're in their jobs in the city. And so what we find is a lot of analytics are skewed that way to where you'll see a lot of entrance from the metro market, from the big city, even though you don't service that area. So don't count those out. They're still important to you. In addition to that, you'll see where your main cities you're targeting are. And that's a good way also to see if you have a lot of entrances from your top 3 or 4 cities. That's a good way to define what your marketing area is. A lot of people assume that their marketing area is every zip code they service. And yet, but the reality is that so many of that is spreading yourself so thin that the farther you get away from your main office location, the less likely people are to have a relationship with you because you're not as prevalent. It's not as big of an impact anymore. They're not seeing your trucks every day. You're not doing as much business when you get farther away from your office. You can target certain cities for sure, and you can set up campaigns for that. But in general, most of the time when you're setting up a marketing area, whether it's going to be your billboards or postcards and stuff like that, focus on the zip codes that you do the most businesses and that you have the most traffic and popularity in, because when you send stuff out, you're already the brand in that area. You already have a following, and most of your marketing just works because you are the household name there. People have that familiarity.